Hi, welcome to Kerrigan Fishing. I'm your host, Adam Kerrigan. Now, this is my inaugural video for this channel, so forgive me if it comes out kind of rough. I don't have the best equipment, and I definitely don't know how to edit. So I'm going to do my very best to make sure I capture the full content of this video in a single take. As you'll see, eventually, it's probably going to be a bigger test of skill for me than I would have originally hoped for. So, what am I here to talk about today? You can spend hours and hours and hours watching your preferred YouTube personalities out on a kayak or on a fishing boat performing these incredibly acrobatic casts in a variety of different situations. But there's never really a lot of time dedicated to understanding what those casts are for, why they've been selected for the particular situation that, you know, the pro is in, or like how to do them. Now, if you're anything like me, your preferred fishing is from a kayak. My preferred species to go after happens to be snakehead, which in my opinion is one of the most maligned, misunderstood species there is currently in the United States. The common way that there is to fish for snakehead is on topwater. Now, a normal rig that you would see the average person coming out with would look a little bit of something like this. You have a medium to a medium heavy action, relatively inexpensive fishing pole. You would have a reasonably priced but capable reel. You'd probably have somewhere between 30 and 50 pound, braided line. In this case, we have 50 pound Power Pro. And I think maybe the most common lure that you would see people using is something like this. A standard, topwater frog. This particular frog happens to be the one that I would say pound for pound is the best one on the market. It's the Megafrox popcorn frog. When you're kayak fishing, the whole point is to be able to get into water that other people can't. Go after fish that other people can't catch. Now, because you're in those restrained conditions, sometimes you're really, really up close and personal with a fish, where the smallest motion that you're going to throw out there may be enough to cause that fish to spook. And once it's gone, it's gone. A large motion cast where, you're sitting here with this great big 7-foot pole and you're, either seated or standing in the kayak and you're making this big arm wave and you're casting all kinds of shadows, that's sure to spook a fish. Another thing, when I'm throwing this lure, it doesn't seem like it's very heavy, but when it's been thrown a pretty good distance, this thing hits the water like a ton of bricks. Boom, right? And we've all been in situations before where a lure hitting spooks a fish off, especially with snakehead. What I'm going to talk about today is the simple underhand pitch. Now, there's two methods that I like to use when I'm out on a kayak for this particular type of cast. One of them involves opening the bail. The other one involves not messing with the bail at all. Now, we'll start with the method that doesn't involve using the bail. In my hands right now is, like I said, a 7-foot pole. I'm out in my kayak, either I'm in a seated position or I'm standing, and I see the signs of what I believe is a snakehead directly in front of me. Now, I know I need to cast to it, but an overhand cast is going to be awkward. The sidearm is going to be awkward. And the underhand, probably presents the best opportunity for me to be able to put the lure in the strike zone. How do I do it? How do I measure my distance? Well, I see the fish. There's really no way for me to know for sure exactly how far it is, but then I remember, I know my rod is 7 feet. I know that if I extend my lure to the base of my rod, and I put those two together, 7 feet of line, 7 feet of rod, 14 feet in total. So, if I'm trying to gauge this and try to find out if it's within the distance appropriate for this type of cast, I go to the side, throw my line out, and that gives me an idea of exactly how far away 14 feet is. Enough to get the job done, or it's not. If it's not, that's when we involve the second method. The second method involves opening the bail. You want to make sure that your lure sits comfortably about even with the depth on your reel. Not the base of the rod, the reel. And the reason for that is I'm going to use this space to create a little bit of tension on the rod tip. See how I've got that little bit of bend in there? That little bend is going to be the force that actually causes the lure to fly forward when I release it. So the technique here is pretty similar to the way that you would normally cast. Your index finger secures your line. You open your bail. Now, notice how I'm holding this lure. One of the reasons why I like using a frog for this particular technique is that the hooks, right, It's hard to get these hooks. It's a weedless system, right? It's hard for these hooks to get caught on you or on your clothes or anything like that. So that's something to keep in mind. Safety, ruining your gear, these are things that you always want to be thinking about. So the way that you hold the lure is up here at the eyelet where it connects. Index finger, open bail, holding the line, hand holding the lure like so. Now, with this presentation, this particular type of cast, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my non-casting hand to pull that lure backwards, and then I'm going to let the rod tip carry the lure forward. Now, the part that requires practice is learning when to release the line with your trigger finger, and eventually you will get a feel for it. Using this method, I can make casts of 30, 35, 40 feet, all the way down to that original 14 like we talked about. It really gives me broad range. As I do this demonstration, I want you to look at how much my body moves in order to make this cast. Almost not at all. So, what are some methods that you can use to practice these two underhand pitching techniques? Well, the best learning tool that I know of for practicing this particular type of cast is a good old-fashioned bucket. The bucket is useful for measuring the distance or learning how to estimate the distance between yourself and whatever your target happens to be, and it also gives you something to aim at. So, with the non-open bail method, I can consistently estimate exactly what 14 feet looks like with almost no effort at all. Once I consistently get to the point where I can put that lure exactly where I want it, I can move on to the open bail method. Just like that. So, get yourself your rod and reel, get yourself an appropriate, hollow body frog, and a bucket, and add this trick to your arsenal. Once again, this is Adam Kerrigan with Kerrigan Fishing. Please make sure to hit like and subscribe.